Hi, Vanshika. Thank you so much for giving us your valuable time and interviewing with us. For the viewers, may we request you to please share your journey and your story in your own words?
Sure. I guess one word that I have for my journey is interesting. It's been literally a mix of a lot of things. If I sort of just now reflect on how it all started, I think I can broadly divide it into 6 stages. Right from the point when I had the initial thought of going for a global MBA. I was still like a fresh college graduate. I think 6 or 7 months into my first job with EY. And that's when I started having thoughts about, maybe going for a higher education or maybe switching my profile. All sorts of things, to a point where I seriously thought about preparing for GMAT and, juggling academics, job, and just trying to give a serious attempt. Then comes the point where, okay, you have your score, but then you're still not sure of which schools to apply to. I was as naive as, I had a long list without even realizing that that's not the best way or the most structured way. Uh, which actually brings me to you guys. Got in touch with Experts Global and, they really helped me structure my thought process, helped me come up with a curated list of schools that I should apply to and what was maybe better suited as far as my background or my experience is concerned. And then, of course, comes MBA, where you're meeting people from all across the world. And then is job search. I think that's a completely different ball game. I think you are really, really trying to find a spot for yourself in a very big market. And you don't know, like, how do you position yourself in front of potential employers or, for that matter, what is the right role for you? And then again, here I am. I've been working in Singapore for almost, I think, 2 years now. So yeah, it's more of a roller coaster for me and yeah, mix of everything, but interesting.
Quite interesting indeed. So, in your opinion, what are a few factors or the actions you took made all the difference?
I think one important thing, when I talk about me even being able to, get a couple of decent interview calls from good schools and even getting that initial slot to speak to their admissions team, Bain really helped. Bain, I would literally give it to that organization for making me the person I was when I was actually going through the entire application journey. There was a phenomenal change in my personality. Definitely, EY was my first employer and they sort of, polished me from a fresh college graduate to a budding professional. So, but then I think Bain was the point in my life which sort of made the difference. In my role at Bain, I did have that experience where I'm actually speaking to a lot of senior stakeholders on a daily basis, which, always gives you that confidence that you know how to control the flow of a conversation, how to lead a conversation in the direction where you want it to go. So, and how much, like, it could be personal for me, but no matter how much people try to sort of downplay the importance of big names on your resume, I have seen it for myself. It makes a lot of difference. Like most of the times, the fact that people even want to speak to you is because you come from a particular school or a particular company, right? And and which I wouldn't say is the best way to, it's like judging a book by its cover, but unfortunately, that's how the world works. So, I think those big names on my resume really helped me. Apart from that, I would say that, networking, like talking to people,
Hmm.
reach out to as many people as you can. That was something that I did not always know. I, like, going by the kind of person I am, I'm not the most outspoken. I take my own time to sort of, get comfortable with people or even reach out for that matter. I really had to come out of my comfort zone. And I think that was one factor that really helped me. Uh, when you speak to different kinds of people, learn more about their journey, you get to know a lot. So
True.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, it's quite inspiring, how you actually got out of your comfort zone to network and reach out to people. So, with the benefit of hindsight, what are a few mistakes you think you committed in the process?
Right. So I think the process is, if I have to divide it, it's into two parts, right? One is your GMAT journey and the other is your application journey when you're actually looking at schools and filling out forms and essays and all of that. GMAT, one big thing, I think when I started off, I did not practice as much. I thought the coursework is not, I mean, it was more or less slightly above average in terms of the level of questions that you're dealing with. But I did not practice enough. I mean, most of the questions I would be like, I can do it. But then, when it actually comes down to attempting those questions in an exam environment, it's a very different, it's a very different situation. So one mistake, definitely, I did not practice enough. And then it's also about maintaining your mental and emotional balance when you are when you're taking the exam. I remember my first attempt. I had really prepared a lot. I mean, and sometimes I think I was too harsh on myself. I, after the first section, which couple of questions here and there, I thought, okay, no, this was wrong. I did not do it correctly. And I completely lost it. I mean, in the second section, I blanked out. I was like, oh, my exam is gone and this cannot be helped. And I actually wasted that attempt. I mean, now if I reflect on it, I could have maintained my calm. I could have given even the second section my best shot and still saved that attempt.
Mhm.
But that did not happen. So definitely, I think it's very important. Anybody who is an aspirant right now, uh, you always have that margin. You always have that saving grace. So make sure that you stick to it, maintain that calm. It's never too late. You can still save your attempt, save your exam. Just keep pushing yourself that no, I can still make it better. I can still
Mhm.
make it happen.
Yeah.
And if I talk about my application journey, I think, reach out to people to get your essays reviewed. Uh, I remember when I started off, I was like, essays, I mean, yeah, I've been doing it all my school life. I'll be good at it. And it's about my journey, who knows it better than myself. But trust me, it's one thing to know about your journey.
Mhm.
It's another thing to actually articulate it. uh, I was not that good at it. I mean, in my own world, I was like, yeah, I'm very good at it, but apparently I wasn't. I think initially I kept sitting on my essays and I was like, yeah, it's nice, good enough. But, when I actually, one of my friends suggested, have you gotten it reviewed? And I was like, I don't think so. If I, do I even need it? So he was like, no, I think you should, and reach out to specifically alums of those schools where you're applying. Uh, even alums from different schools, I think everybody whosoever has gone through that journey and has made the cut does know quite a bit about it. Uh,
Absolutely.
so I initially did not do that, but where I actually did, it gave me a lot of good perspective. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it's always helpful to have our essays reviewed. So, yeah. So, what would you like to say about your experience and learnings from managing the application timeline?
Okay, so how I used to do it is, so when you're working most of the time, I think the most used and looked at application is your Microsoft Outlook, if that's what your firm is using for communication. I would set reminders for myself in my Outlook work calendar
Um,
that, okay, 5 days to so-and-so school's application. And that sort of gave me that, it's like, it's a task, right? Of course, it's just like any other project deadline that you are chasing at work. And but this is your personal work and you make sure that you give it due importance, right? So I made sure to set those reminders for myself. I blocked time on my calendar, and that usually used to be after my office hours. Like 4 hours are blocked on my calendar wherein I would do my thorough research about the school, reach out to people from that school and current students as well as the alums, and make sure that I look at my essay material during that time period. So your day is packed that way. So, okay, apart from the, 7 or 8 hours in office, you have another another 3 to 4 hours to go. I know it's a packed day, but then it just sort of prepares you mentally. And so I think it differs from person to person. Like I am more of a person who likes to go by the clock. I think things are more managed for me when I have it on my calendar and I know how my day is going to look like. So that being one thing. Another, like because I used to not stay with my family when I was working. So I used to stay in a rented accommodation in Gurgaon. Um, I would make sure to do all my work, wrap it up in office. So whether it's MBA application work or it's, of course, office work you're doing in office, I would just say never leave your office without submitting your application. Always do it because you get the strongest network and the best setting. It is built for a serious environment, built to achieve deadlines to deliver. So I think office environment is the best for it. Uh, so yeah, I think apart from that, of course, never ever push it to the last date. Make sure that your applications are submitted at least 1 or 2 days before the actual deadline. uh, and if you are reaching, which you should, reach out to people, get their feedback. Do not do it in those last 3 to 4 days to the deadline, because of course, if 3 days before my deadline somebody tells me that your material is shit, what will you do? I mean, you would be like, okay. I mean, you lose all the confidence, and then you sort of start thinking that, okay, in this limited timeline, what do I do? How can I improve it? How can I make it better? So always make sure that you're taking that margin. Reach out to people well in advance. Give them also margin to come back, because it's not like today you message somebody and somebody's like, yeah, yeah, very responsive. No, that doesn't happen, right?
No.
So yeah, just account for those things and
Yes.
get enough margin. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, time management is actually very important when it comes to applications. So, would you like to describe your interview experience with the B schools?
Yeah. So I think, so for me, the tricky part was I usually, I mean, if I look at myself as an applicant and I have to categorize myself, I was one of those underconfident applicants. I even remember my conversation with I think it was Anchal from Experts Global that I spoke to for the first time. And, I mean, when she was also sort of asking me about, what do you think about your profile? Which schools are you looking at? And what do you think? Where can you make it? What is a safe bet? What is more of a long shot? And like, I remember, like, even she told me that, I think you are not thinking, like, you don't think that highly of your own self. I mean, you have done some good stuff. It's high time that you start positioning yourself better. So I always used to be one of those people, and I was looking at specialization in human capital, and Cornell was one of the schools that I knew has a really good program, and I was quite interested in it. But Cornell being among the top ones in the world, so I was like, okay, do I have it in me? Like, is it maybe, am I being just too aspirational here? I don't know. So, but of course, Experts Global really helped me build that confidence that no, you just have to tweak your application and your positioning strategy in a manner that they are forced to talk to you,
Right.
and they are all the more intrigued that who is this person? We want to have a conversation. And I my first interview call was from Cornell, and yeah, and that was my first interview. And you can imagine if it is one of those schools that you were a bit jittery about applying to, and then that becomes your first interview, you're like, okay. So yeah, I mean, and somehow it turns out that, even my day at work on that day was really, really hectic. So I was a bit, okay.
Oh.
But pretty good. I mean,
Mhm.
I would say my entire interview experience was actually a very good learning experience for me. Uh, Speaking was never a problem for me. Like,
Okay.
initiating a conversation was, but once I am into it, I think I never struggled with, okay, what will I say? But Cornell, I would say, definitely was the interviewer on their side was pretty typical. I mean, he had a like for the others, I think mostly I had ladies and they were very jolly and like at least had a smiling face. But for him, he was like, okay, poker face, no expressions whatsoever. And I was a bit okay, like, am I doing it right? Am I screwing up somewhere? So like I got waitlisted at Cornell, which I wouldn't say came as a surprise because I honestly, when I reflect on it, I did not give it my best shot. I think I could have been better in the interview. Um, because the one that I gave after that, which is for NTU, where I finally went, uh, that was a much more relaxed conversation. I think I was more myself over there, and I was able to structure my points and my, my thought process much better in that interview. So I think in Cornell, maybe I let my anxiety get better of me. Maybe I wasn't that clear enough in my head and I wasn't able to position myself that well.
All right.
So yeah,
Okay. So, can you tell us more about your MBA experience?
MBA experience, it gave me all that I was looking for as far as a global MBA is concerned. Had people from different parts of the world. In fact, from such places where like I had never met anybody from that part of the world. It's like that. Like for that matter, if I go by my life experience, I'd never been outside India. Like literally, the first time I stepped outside India was for my MBA. So I hadn't had that global exposure. When you have a class full of people from the whole of Southeast Asia, I mean, any country that you can think of, there are people from there. And then you even have people who've had a very global life, I would say. I mean, they've been moving around the world even as a kid. So they may, like, origin wise they may come from a particular country, but they actually know quite a bit about the world in general. So it's quite an interesting experience. And then in terms of professors, like you have people from again different parts of the world. You have Singaporeans, you have Indonesians, you have Vietnamese, you have Filipinos, you have Americans, you have Indians. So you're being taught by the best talent from across the world. So, and everybody has a typical style, right? You also get to understand a lot about, like Indian professors are typical. Singaporean professors are typical. So they have their own strategy, their own way. I think it's quite interesting. Uh, so I think, yeah, the experience was really good. I mean, everything that I was looking for.
Wow, quite a wholesome experience, I guess. Yeah.
Totally.
So, can you please tell us about your job search experience during the MBA and what kind of, suggestions would you give to the future MBA applicants regarding that?
Sure. Job search wasn't good. I mean, it was, uh, I think I hadn't yet graduated. Yeah, it was 2020 June when I was due to graduate and COVID hit. In fact, it hit much earlier in Singapore because, of course, the influx of people between China and Singapore is really high, right? So I think it was early Jan when you started getting those pieces of news where there is this unknown virus that has cropped up. So things started getting tricky. And I remember, I think it was March, yeah, March or early April when Singapore went for a complete shutdown. I mean, it was they refer to it as circuit breaker, where nothing at all is moving, and we moved to the online mode of classes. And that's when you have your MBA, which is about to end, and you have to get a job, right? And you don't know what's happening. And specifically when you're an international candidate, right? With the kind of economic impact that COVID had, uh, every country in the world was pushing for higher local talent, right? And which I do understand from their perspective makes sense. But I did not come to Singapore to, go back to India and work.
Right.
I was I was pretty sure that I have to, get a job here, if not Singapore, at least in the Southeast Asian part of the world, where I can sort of, get that exposure. What is it like to work there? Uh, initial few months were tough.
All right.
Uh, I think the only thing that kept me going was that, even during my application journey or during my MBA, I had learned that technique of coming out of your comfort zone, reaching out to people, and you know asking that, okay, what has your experience been like? Where do you work? What do you do? How did you plan to land the job? How did you end up landing a job that you always wished for while you were doing your MBA? So actually, just talking to people and networking really helped. And because I had already sort of overcome that initial hesitance of mine, during MBA and application journey, I think that really helped. And my only work throughout that job search process was to talk to as many people as you can.
All
Uh,
right.
and you have to, I mean, even as far as positioning yourself, like you have to sell yourself. I mean, as
Mm-hmm.
like as transactional or mechanical as it may sound, you have to sell yourself. And that's what the application journey had already taught me. I mean, I had learned how to structure my thoughts in a manner that I'm able to position myself. It's like I'm a product and I'm positioning myself in a new market.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what I did. But there are some really, really helpful people out there. It's a mix. I mean, not that you would always get the most sweet people who are always ready to help you, but there are some really, really helpful people. And it's just I was blessed to have a couple of them around me. They help. Yeah, like even
Oh.
when I started off with my job search, I wouldn't say I was very clear with what I want. And sometimes when you are in a position where you don't know, like you're even ready to settle, like you're ready to settle for maybe slightly more
Mm-hmm.
average or something, not that you were ideally looking for. But then it's people like these who actually keep you motivated and tell you, no, okay, don't exactly settle, maybe tweak your approach a bit.
All right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Great. Great. That's great. It's very inspiring. So, what would be your final message and suggestions to all the future aspirants and MBA applicants watching this video?
I think, of course, dedication and focus. I mean, it may as cliche as it might sound, but that goes a long way. I mean, you have to, like, as I mentioned, when I reflect on my journey, I could divide it into stages. And there was a stage where I was just, I was still not very sure of whether I want to give it a serious attempt or not. And I was just, I think my efforts towards even preparing for GMAT for that matter were sincere enough. Like even when you have to juggle academics and job, you have to have it in you where you're dead sure serious about it, right? So I think that focus, that dedication is important. Uh, Also just believe in yourself. I mean, don't always downplay your skills or the kind of work ex you have or the educational background you have. It if if you are not convinced with your value proposition, how can you convince the other person? It's about
Absolutely.
that, right?
Yeah. Agree.
Uh, just imagine yourself to be the salesperson of a company where you're trying to sell the product, and if you are yourself not convinced about the product's values and its attributes, how will you convince the buyer, right? So that's always there. And I think one important thing that I learned the hard way, I mean, I think resume is that initial point that all of the aspirants struggle with. Uh,
Yeah. True.
and if we talk about what is a resume, it is a list of all that you have done as far as work or education is concerned, right? It should be pretty basic. You do it day in, day out. You've done it, right? But I think when you are so involved in the process, like
Mm.
every day I open my laptop, couple of sheets I look at, interact with so and so people, deliver on so and so projects, like broadly the theme remains the same, right? I think I would come up with a very mundane and, you know, not a very exciting description of my job. But that is where what you need to do is, and this is something that, now when I reflect on it, I think that's something that all of anybody who's trying to,
Mm-hmm.
go for a global MBA or even just, drawing up their resume, think of yourself, put yourself in the shoes of your hiring manager. When you are a person who's trying to build a team, How do
Mm-hmm.
you do it? You will look at the organization. You will look at, okay, what role will this team play in the broader scheme of things? And then within the team, you will think about what role will each of the team members play,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And how have you've looked at job descriptions, right? How fancy they are. Like, I think all of us would agree with this, that a job description is the most fancy description of your job role,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
uh, how are they built? They're always built by taking a, by taking a step back and thinking about, okay, what as little or as big a role will this person play in the broader scheme of things, in the broader business of the company?
Mm-hmm.
What value will this person add?
Yeah.
And you literally drop that entire fancy description that, oh, you are our person. It's you who will run our business, right? That's how job descriptions sound.
True. True.
And it's not that you're fluffing. I do not recommend fluffing. I know that, everybody has a different perspective there, but it's just about, always thinking of even the most basic task that you do on your job. Think of it, what value does it add? Because every task that you perform is adding, like even a simple calendar invite, what value is it adding? It is giving that structure and organization to your workday, right?
True. Yeah. Absolutely.
So you would say like, why should I mention something like this? So you don't have to mention it like this, that, oh, I send calendar invites. No,
Yeah.
that's not how you, just taking a very, very basic example here.
And yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's my 2 cents on.
No, it's actually quite inspiring, and I would really like to congratulate you on your journey. You've come a long way, and it's very inspiring. Like, I'm sure your suggestions are going to help a lot of other students and future applicants. So, thank you so much for interviewing with us, knowing your story and journey. It was amazing.
No,
Yeah,
it was great
yeah.
even sharing my experience, and it's been a while actually that I reflected on it. So I would say this was a great opportunity for me to actually take a look back and how it all started. Where am I right now? It's always good. So yeah,
So,
happy to do this.
thank you so much, and I hope you have a good day ahead. Yeah,
Okay, thank you so much. Bye bye.
bye.